Hello and welcome to Mad Men, episode 13, Lucky 13, The Wheel. I'm Jon Hamm, I play Don Draper. This is Matt's first directing job, and he does a wonderful job with it.
Hello, this is Elisabeth Moss, and I play Peggy Olson. We didn't know if we had gotten picked up yet for our second season when we made this, so it was sort of that feeling of the pilot of like, well, I hope we're coming back to do more. I mean, we thought we were going to. The reviews had been so great, and the critics loved it, and people were watching and everything, so we thought we were going to, but you never know with this kind of thing. And so we didn't know if we were coming back at this point. This episode was written by Matt and Robin, and they did an incredible job. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's beautifully written. One thing that I've felt about the whole arc of this season was that it went from something that you already thought was pretty edgy and pretty dark, just down darker and darker and darker. And just when you thought, like, we'd reached some sort of a line, it just goes further. And in my opinion, they just got better and better and better, which is interesting because the pilot, we were nervous about whether or not we were going to be able to make the second one as good as the pilot. And it just gets better and better each episode, in my humble opinion.
I'll tell you, Sterling Cooper.
It's a big the theme in this one is the importance of family, family versus work, and it's a tough thing for Pete to handle as well as it's a tough thing for Don to handle for completely different reasons, obviously. Don has a very hard time with putting down any roots, and family represents that very much for Don. And I think with Pete, it's the opposite. He is sort of burdened by his family and what they represent, and is hesitant to start that up with a new generation. And obviously set around Thanksgiving, which is a very family-oriented holiday.
Hi, this is January Jones. I play Betty Draper. The only people that I ever had scenes with in regards to The Office is the one day I came in and the episode where we're supposed to take the Christmas pictures. I had a scene with Peggy. And that's about it. And Roger, he comes to the house a couple times. We have dinner. Maybe one day Betty will go to the office again.
Sally and Bobby's child.
We only get the script a couple days before we start shooting, and then we have a table read, but there aren't rehearsals. And Matt's been very complimentary to the actors on the show, and the fact that we know that once we come to set, we have a limited time to do these scenes, so we're all very focused and prepared. And if we do have any questions on our character or the way the scenes are played, or questions about, the time period, there's always some curiosity on, some of the things that we say. He's always there and open to help us, but we don't have any rehearsal time.
Having Matt direct the episode was great because he does have such a strong vision that on all the previous episodes, his input was very strong, obviously, and he definitely worked to have things the way that he had envisioned them. So having him just be there to actually just direct the episode and be there from 6 o'clock in the morning till, for 14, 15 hours was totally ideal, I think, for everyone involved. Not excluding Matt. He loved it. I think if he could direct everyone, he would. And it's great because he's the creator and he's the executive producer. So if you have any questions about anything at all, you just can turn to him and he's right there, and he's exactly the man that you want to ask anyways. So having him there was just awesome. I would love to have him direct more next season. And obviously, him directing is just very natural because you're used to following his vision anyways, and you're used to collaborating with him anyways, even when he's not directing the episode. There's very much a collaborative effort on each episode. He likes to get input from the actors, and he loves to talk to the actors.
Don is now a partner in the company, and that's sort of new. When we talk about office politics and relationships in the office, this is sort of new ground. He relates to Betty in the first scene when he says, I have to miss part of Thanksgiving because I'm a partner now. It's more responsibility and more stuff to deal with. And his boss, Bert Cooper, makes it very clear that with that new responsibility, there's a different way to act. And he doesn't want to have to clean up these messes. And we certainly see that in previous episodes where Roger doesn't necessarily subscribe to the same paradigm of business etiquette that maybe Bert does.
I really love this scene. I love Francine opens up to Betty in the way that she does and makes Betty think about her own marriage.
I've been outside waiting for you to come.
I think Betty would find it very disarming to think that her friend, her best friend, or anyone else would think that she's having problems in her marriage or in her life in general, just because she works very hard to have it seem very perfect on the outside, at least. And for her to find out that Francine maybe thinks that Donna's cheating forces her to think about that. Not that she may not have been thinking about it already, but the fact that other people are thinking about it really shakes her up and kind of forces her to figure it out and get it out in the open.
And I had to do all this without him knowing.
I think it scares her.
How perfect.
I don't understand.
They gave me the bill.
I have an idea of where my character is, but you read the script for the next week and it might go in a completely different direction. So it's fun. It's interesting. You kind of have to think on your toes, and unfortunately for us, the writing's impeccable and everything that we need is usually on the page. But it's fun. It's fun to see where it goes every week. It could totally throw you for a loop. And in my character's case, Betty definitely goes in some strange directions. But I what I loved about the season finale is that you see that she has grown and the therapy has actually worked in her favor, and she's thinking for herself and what she may want out of life, and is showing frustration and a little bit of depression, and she's in her pajamas a lot. I think that she's very dissatisfied and is kind of showing that to Don more and more.
While I'm upstairs sleeping.
It's a great character, and Dudek, and the actress who plays Francine, is really wonderful. The idea of the two ways of dealing with reality. Betty sort of, I think she makes the point later, treats it like an ostrich and sort of sticks her head in the sand and hopes it goes away, whereas Francine wants to take matters into her own hands.
This episode feels like just the culmination of everything that we've been working up to over the whole season. Everything is just kind of reaches its boiling point in this episode, and there's so many different storylines and arcs of many different characters that come to a head in this episode.
Damn it, Betty.
I think that she finds that this is a very uncharted territory, and I think that the fact that I think she's a little appalled that Francine would, find this out, or even if she had found it out, that she would think these things and be open about it and say my husband is possibly cheating on me, and it can't be that. It has to be anything but that, and even if it is what you think, you can't let yourself think that, and just pull yourself together.
He doesn't know you know.
I know that.
I love that line. He doesn't know you know, so just forget about it.
No, don't.
It's another Mad Men trait that she finds out that he's calling her therapist. She doesn't necessarily find out that he's having an affair. Again, it doesn't go in the direction that you think it's going to go. But she finds out something that's, maybe to her just as bad.
I think slacks were quite fashionable, and even in the second episode, as she wears pants, I think during the day when she's just running out, she wears them every once in a while.
Matt called me into his office about 3 weeks before we started the second episode, and he said he wanted to talk to me about something. And he sat me down on his couch and he said, so, blah, 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 blah. And she starts eating and she's trying to sort of make herself more not attractive to the men around her, and she's dealing with a lot, so it's kind of stress related and blah, blah, blah. And he goes on and on and on about this thing. And then he goes, in the last episode, she's pregnant. And my jaw just dropped. I couldn't believe it. And I think he was really nervous about whether or not I was going to like it. And I think he's told me since then that he didn't know what he was going to do if I didn't like it, because that was the idea. Thank God I loved the idea, and I was definitely nervous. It was not the most comfortable things, the padding and the makeup later on, but it was an opportunity as an actress that you don't pass up. You don't get to do that kind of thing very often, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. There was no way I could say no. I think a lot of people thought that the clothes were just unflattering. I would have interviewers say to me, wow, the clothes of that period were just not very flattering, were they? This was before really we could talk about it, and I would just sort of smile and say yes, 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 because I couldn't really say anything. I was very, very happy that people fell for it in that way and fell for it so hard, because that was the exact intention. I did not want anyone thinking that it was padding or thinking that I was pregnant. We all wanted it to look real.
Yeah, I love this scene. You see how strong Peggy's gotten and how her position has become elevated. She's become sort of like a man in the way she thinks, and she's kind of lost a bit of sensitivity.
This scene we filmed pretty much all day. It was very long. There was a lot to do, a lot of parts of it. And it was me and Aaron in that booth for hours and hours and hours. And he's wonderful.
Just ask my husband.
I could talk about all the men on this show. They're all so good in their own ways.
Believe it or not,
Aaron's wonderful, and there's not a whole lot that's really etched out about Ken. At least in the beginning there wasn't, and he brought something to it and found things to open up that character. He's another just brilliant actor. All of those boys, Rich Sommer, wonderful, wonderful actor, wonderful man. And he did so good with his arc and with what happens to his character. He just broke my heart in this episode when he starts crying when watching the carousel. I just think that's an absolutely brilliant moment, and he really brought such depth to that character. And the same with Michael Gladis as Paul. I'm so glad to have the three of them. All three of those characters are not necessarily characters that any other actors, they might not bring the depth to those characters that those three men did. And they made them breathe, they made them alive, they gave them stories like they're real people. And it's just a testament to those three actors and to the casting. It's brilliant.
Do you have to?
Peter.
The first episode that I had to wear the padding was a little tough. I wasn't used to it, and it, made me very self-conscious. I was so lucky to have Janie be the one who I was working with, because at one point I showed up on set in my first costume with the first padding, and I turned to her and I just said, Janie, I'm just gonna trust you. And she said, you can trust me. From then on out, I just trusted her implicitly that it was gonna look good and it was gonna look real, and she did everything to make me comfortable as much as she could. But my main concern was that it looked good and that it looked believable. That would have been far worse than anything if people didn't believe it. It was a great relationship that I had with her from that moment, because we worked very closely together with all that padding, and she was wonderful. It's the episode where Pete has the speech about the deer, and the hunting and the gun, that scene was the first scene that we shot with any padding, and Vinny didn't even notice at first. I had to actually tell him that I was wearing padding because it was so subtle, because we wanted it to be really believable. And I remember Slattery telling me that he saw me walk by and turned to someone else and made some sort of a comment and said, "Is she, like, what's going on there?" I mean, and this was like actually a couple episodes in, so even my own cast members didn't realize right away what was happening, because we kept it a secret for a very long time. I think Jon Hamm might have known, but nobody else knew, not even Vinny, that it was going in that direction till we started actually doing it. And I had to tell people because otherwise it was going to look really strange. I was really, was all thin in my normal clothes and then all padded out when I got into costume. My own friends didn't know, obviously, and I had one of my best friends texted me and said, this was, almost at the end of the season, and she texted me and she goes, are they doing anything different with your makeup on the show? And because she hadn't seen me in months, so she didn't want to offend me just in case I'd perhaps put on a few pounds. And I think that was the feeling of a lot of people, actually, is I had to actually tell people, including my friends, listen, I'm not changing in real life, it's for the show, because it looked so good, which is a testament to Janie Bryan and her incredible work. People really did believe that was happening. I had people ask me, I had one interviewer ask me if I was pregnant. People, I think, were really confused. I can't tell you how many times I've showed up to photo shoots, interviews, jobs on films since the first season and had people go, "Oh, okay, great. So you don't actually look like that." I think people actually think that happened, which is fine. The main idea behind it was that, yes, there was the big reveal in the last episode that she was pregnant, but it had to be believable for about 5 episodes that it was being caused by other things. So it was kind of a delicate balance that we had to find of, yes, she's pregnant, that is actually why she's gaining weight, but there's a lot of other stuff going on that we had to sell. And it isn't just because of the pregnancy that she's gaining weight. She kind of gains the weight in proportion to her confidence building in an odd way. She gets more and more confident the more her body changes. It's a way for her to ward off the advances of the men around her. It's as simple as that. It's a way for her to, in a way, stand out, because there's all these attractive women walking around that the men are going after. The only way that she can actually stand out is to not be so attractive to them. It's a way for her to become not noticeable in that way and noticeable for other things. I don't think she thinks that deep into it. I think it's a lot of sort of happening more on an unconscious level, but that is what's happening. It was really important to Matt and I to try to make that clear and not make it just about some big television reveal that she was pregnant, but to show that there was an emotional depth to that happening. And I think and I hope that we did.
Just ask my husband. I swear, he looks
I was so excited to get to do this scene. There's so much going on in it. She really, at this point, has come into her own. And despite what's happening with her physically that you would think might make her more insecure and less confident, the exact opposite has happened, and she has become very ballsy, very confident, and almost like a man, which was kind of the point. She is now smarter and more confident than Ken, not to mention a few other people in the office. I think this whole thing that's going on with the character of Annie, who this actress is wonderful, by the way, but I think this whole thing that's going on is she doesn't actually begrudge this girl her beauty or her thinness. She's really trying to do her job. She really thinks that this girl, how could she not be confident? How could she not do a good job in this spot? She's gorgeous. She's got to have that thing. she's wrong. And Ken tells her a woman like that is never confident. Peggy doesn't realize that because she thinks, well, gosh, a woman like that has got to have it all, right? And she doesn't.
Confident, beautiful.
I loved playing this because getting to come all that way from the pilot and poor Peggy stumbling around, not knowing what she was doing and trying to do her best and being Little Miss Goody Two-Shoes, coming from that to this strong, almost ruthless, almost cruel character was so much fun. And getting to play Peggy doing this was just great. And I think that she gets a little bit of satisfaction for making this girl cry in a kind of a cruel way.
Give me a second. I'll get it the way you want it. I never thought it would happen to me, but
She had to go through hours with the suit and the prosthetics. I think that they did a beautiful job.
I never thought it would happen to me, but
It was really funny to see her make that transformation every day on set. I think it makes you hold yourself a little differently,
This is not working
which is
out.
appropriate for her character at this time.
You could have gone in there and said that.
She was really wonderful. That was not easy. She had to be all by herself on the other side of that glass doing this thing, and she was just great.
Then after you make plans or whatever you need to do, call Rita. The older lady you liked? She's probably home with the Relaxicizer right now.
I love that line. The scene is ultimately about her wanting to do a good job, though. Not wanting to be cruel to this poor girl because she's beautiful or anything, but she just really actually needs this girl to do a good job. And she's got to go back and have something good. This is her first really, big account, her first, the biggest thing she's done professionally so far, and it's so important to her that she becomes ruthless about it. And she has that drive, Peggy, and she has that ambition that it takes to make it in this world. And that's why I think she is going to make it, is because she's got that ruthless drive. She makes this girl cry and then fires her in the wrong way and still doesn't bat an eye. She's like, call in Rita. I'm going to get this done.
Brayden.
Yes, sorry to bother you so late. I'm looking for someone. Yeah, this is one of the few times we see Don sort of reaching out and actually trying to contact his family and connect with his family, and I think that it's, again, a big theme in the episode, but a part of what he's trying to do with his job is try to sell this product, and he's using family to try to get a sense of nostalgia and love and family, and it's a very foreign concept to him. And now the one connection that he had to his family is no longer there. His old family obviously has been cut off. We think that would be comforting to Don, but in fact it makes him feel terrible and alone.
The feeling at the end of the season was one of not knowing whether or not we were going to come back, hoping we were, a little bit of sadness. For me, it was just, I couldn't believe that we'd come that far. Thinking back to the pilot, at that point it was about a year and a half before, and thinking back to the pilot and standing on that set and not knowing whether or not we'd get to come back. And here we were at the end of the first season of our show, which we never knew if we were going to get to make or not, and here we were, and it was a great feeling, and a great feeling of accomplishment, and also I think I felt very proud because I knew we had done a good job, and we had done the show justice, and we had lived up to the pilot, and we had all come so far, and we were also all still friends, and even closer than ever, which is a good thing and doesn't always happen. And it's a great feeling to work on something that you're proud of And that doesn't happen all the time. So when you work on something that you know is good and you're so proud of and you just want to make better, it's a great feeling, and I feel very lucky to have that.
The one time Don's actually at the office working, Betty thinks he's cheating. Of course, Betty is thinking that Don is cheating on her when in fact he's sort of checking up on her, which is maybe even more horrifying.
I think this is a very sad scene when she finds out that all the information that she's given to this doctor has been. She finds out that it's very much a betrayal by just men in general. I think her doctor, it's supposed to be confidential, and her husband.
Who is this?
This is Dr. Arnold Wayne.
It's the same sort of betrayal. I don't know if it would have been any worse if it was a woman. I think it's kind of worse that it was the doctor, actually.
I have warned you, this is inappropriate.
But in turn, I think it also gives her the strength to say what she finally does say in the final Dr. Wayne scene. You know, the manipulated becomes the manipulator a little bit.
Whenever anything happens, it has a sort of innocence to it in this show, like with Peggy's sort of honesty, or the thing with Betty and the little boy. It's hard to buy into because you're so used to being lied to, and you're so used to things having a darker, sinister side, that when something actually honest and innocent happens, it's very hard to believe.
I love this scene. Oh, Rich in his underwear, jogging. They probably got that in the first take, but then made him do it 3 or 4 more times just to... because it's funny. And I love that there's a man in his shorts and a T-shirt in the office, and Don doesn't really care about that. He's focused on his job. I want to talk to you about this.
Sells projectors to people who already have them.
I'm so glad that he got to have this episode rich, because he's such an incredible actor, and he really deserved it. And it's great. Every single character on this show had a chance to have their moment, and that is not easy to do. We're talking 13 episodes. It's not even a full season. And to give every single character their moment is incredible feat. And everybody just did so well with it. They just took it and run with it.
Worse. I did a whole series.
One of the things that I love about this show is the way that it shows solitude. I mean, all of these people, man or woman, are living these essentially really lonely lives. And they all have secrets, and no one's happy. And everyone's got a problem. And they're all working it out completely by themselves. And it's very dark in that way. And I think it's very well done. Down to the very last moment, the very last scene of this episode, which is just Don sitting completely by himself.
Like someone reaching through the stone.
There was a rumor right at the end of this season that came out. A few people had kind of heard about it, but we finally talked about it, that somebody was going to get offed. And I think the rumor was that it was Harry, that Rich Summers' character was going to get offed. I think an idea was that he was going to maybe fall out the window, like in the opening credits. And they decided not to do it. And Matt decided not to do it because he was so good that nobody wanted him to die. And I'm so, so glad that they didn't do that. That would have been a bad idea. He's too good. Rich is one of those people that him and I are constantly turning to each other and saying, "Can you believe we're doing this show? Can you believe this? This is amazing." We're both like giddy little kids sometimes.
This is a heartbreaking scene. I can tell you that this was like the hottest day in Pasadena of the year, and we were all in our coats and gloves, and the fake snow and just sweltering. We had ice packs underneath my petticoat and ice packs in my shoes. And poor Martin, who plays Glenn, was just sweating in that car.
Glenn?
I love this scene. It's one of the few times we see just how confused and adrift Betty really is. Under this sort of perfect veneer, we see that she's sad and lost and has no one to really talk to. So she opens up to this child, who of course is a child and has no capacity to understand what she's going through.
Well, I really thought it was a beautiful relationship between these two. I suppose when I first read the script with the lack of hair, I thought it was a little strange, but then I totally understood what Matt was trying to do, and that they're sort of I'm so sad. Sort of the same person. That he's kind of mature for his age, and emotionally this is the only person that she is actually 100% honest with, is this young boy. And I don't think it's weird or, sick or inappropriate. I think that it's quite beautiful that she has this childlike quality and needs reassurance from this small boy.
Please tell me I'll be okay.
In a funny way, Peggy and Betty have a lot in common. They both are alone. They both are closely connected to Don. And they both are going through a crisis all by themselves.
I don't really know.
She doesn't have anyone to talk to. She can't talk to her best friend. She can't talk to her husband, obviously. And now she knows she can't talk to her doctor. Not about the things she may want to talk to him about. I think she has an enormous sense of pride as well. And what she's been trying to do as a wife and as a mother, and upholding this family that everyone thinks is perfect. But she has all these legitimate fears and is very lonely and wants to know that it'll be okay, but who can she ask? And the little boy who plays Glenn is Matt Weiner's son, which is pretty amazing. He's a great actor, great little actor.
It's a real account, Campbell.
Matt said that he asked Martin if he thought it was strange, the Glenn-Betty relationship, and wanted to warn him that some people might think that that is a little inappropriate or a strange relationship. And Martin was very funny when saying, well, Dad, it is weird. And he thought it was very strange himself. So, but he played it beautifully.
So we see Pete trying a little bit of a different approach with Don now. But Pete did actually bring in some business, so that's a significant difference.
An interesting thing about this show is all the women are actually kept very separate. Peggy is off on her own. Joan is now off on her own. They don't even have each other. Betty is off on her own completely. And then Don's mistresses are obviously off on their own. Pete's wife, any of the wives. The men are together, but the women are kind of lead these very separate, lonely lives. It's very interesting.
I love that I was allowed to take the time to get settled into this, and you can kind of see her premeditation about what she's going to say. She knows what she's going to say. Well, the scene starts out with Betty walking in and taking off her jacket and taking time and setting down her purse and getting her cigarettes ready. And the scenes preceding it in the other episodes, she's already on the couch. So you kind of see that she goes into this thing regular about holidays and everyday trifles, and she just kind of drops a bomb.
This scene is great because it shows just how far Betty has actually come. She takes her first sort of honest, independent move and strike against Don for the first time, and she does it through this therapist guy.
I'm grateful for things.
These speeches are amazing in the therapist's office. She does them lying down completely still and gives this whole speech barely moving. They're really good.
Don doesn't think so, but it has.
It's interesting because the second episode, I think it's the second, third, and fourth, goes much more into the house and away from the office. And I had a lot of people saying to me, what's happened? Are they going to go back to the office? There's so much more in the house. But that had to be done because you only saw January in one scene, and there was a very big part of the show that we had to kind of bring that in and show that. And by now, obviously, they're both working together perfectly, both sides of the story.
My brother's children are very badly behaved, and he spanks them. Don has never laid a hand on the kids. He's kind inside.
I was very happy when I read the script, when I found out that she finds out all that and communicates it to him the way that she does. I think it was kind of empowering. And realistically, I don't think she needs to see Dr. Wayne anymore. I think that this sort of therapy, as weird and gruesome as it was, actually did help her.
Or worse.
I think she's telling the doctor what she wanted to tell Don on purpose because she knows it's going to get back to him. And because, there is no confrontation between them. I mean, maybe on a very small level. But she finds that this is the perfect way to communicate to Don that she knows and that she isn't some naive, girl. And I think that the fact, if Don finds that out, we don't see it, but I'm sure that he does. And the fact that he knows that she knows all this and is still with him and is still a loving wife and mother is one of the reasons he realizes what he has and what he could lose. I mean, anytime you have to talk for a long period of time and you want to know the lines 100% so you're able to not focus on it and be able to act. And I use an earpiece during the day when I'm not on set. I record myself saying the lines, not acting them, just kind of saying the words a few times and on a little voice recorder, and then just listen to myself saying over and over again. I kind of just got the idea from, you listen to your iPod or whatever and a song gets in your head, and I figured that if I kept listening to the words over and over, it would just get stuck in my head. And it does work. It works for me. So when I'm stuck for a line, it kind of just eventually comes. So I'm able to get through these scenes without forgetting my lines usually pretty well. But you do get nervous, and it's a lot of acting as well, so you don't want to have to... You'd like to do it in 1 or 2 takes. And there's all kinds of different camera angles as well, so you don't want to end up, getting bored with yourself or your lines. It's one thing, too, about Betty when she's saying all those things in the doctor's office. She really meant them, but she's also very forgiving. She kind of pities Don, and she knows a lot more about him than I think he does.
What do they show? Slides of them working?
And still is there for him and loves him.
So, have you figured out a way to work the wheel into it?
We know it's hard because wheels aren't really seen as exciting.
And that final session with Dr. Wayne is the communication with Dawn that she's been needing, but also along the way, the talking about her mother. And for me as an actor, I wish that maybe the Dawn character would be more sympathetic if he does know all this about Betty and her mom and the things that she's fighting against and the things that she's lacking.
Greek named Teddy. And Teddy told me the most important idea.
We learn a little more about Don's relationship to advertising.
Creates an itch. You simply put your product in there.
Don's talking about nostalgia, and it's a person that has completely, rejected his own history.
Nostalgia. It's delicate, but potent.
This particular scene with the slideshow made me cry. These pictures, maybe it was only one day. There were a lot in Pasadena with the kids and this mini golf course. And John and I had to kind of run around back and forth from the set downtown LA to this Pasadena, back and forth to do these pictures in between scenes. We were finishing up, obviously, for the last episode. They were funny. They were fun. There's some with the hot dog, and It was supposed to be 1955, so it was 5 years earlier, so the outfits were a little bit changed, or a little bit different earlier, obviously, so... I mean, even though they're very, short little glimpses of pictures, there are a lot of thought put into them.
Forwards. It takes us to a place where we ache to go again.
It's very heartfelt, and I think the reason why it's so sincere and he sells the account to Kodak is because he's really feeling all this.
Lets us travel the way a child travels.
So we see Don kind of figuring it out and realizing that maybe there is something a little deeper to the resonance and the importance of family. Obviously, Harry has his own family issues that he's going through as well, so it's a very successful pitch, I think, is the idea there.
I think Harry's just realizing what he could have messed up by cheating on his wife, too. And also, Don's realizing what he has in watching all this.
Good luck at your next meeting. Don, I have to warn you, I'm not alone.
It was beautiful. Congratulations, mein Kommandant.
They call from the lobby.
People may enter marriage these days with, hopefully not as much as I see it, but, always the idea of divorce is a plan B. If things don't work out, there's always divorce or an annulment or whatever. And back then, that wasn't something done. Divorce was frowned upon. It was a worst case scenario. So whether you worked it out for the kids or you pretended to be happy, it didn't happen as much. You did stick it out. I really think that people valued that vow of marriage. I think it meant something. Well, of course, I think a lot of, the storylines in this show and in life itself, everything is driven by fear. The fear of being judged, the fear of being the divorcee on the block like Helen Bishop, or being scared that your husband's cheating on you, or worse than that you're found out. I think you're acting in your own life.
Nobody on this show does anything for anyone else. There's always some way that they get something good out of it, Everybody's always looking out for number one. And even when they do something good for someone else. And he's doing it to get back at Pete in the best way he possibly can, where it hurts the most. And look at him, he just despises him.
Who the hell is she?
So we see Don, the Don-Pete relationship shifting in the scene before, where Pete sort of tries to butter up, become closer to Don and say that he's a team player, and Don is rapidly putting him back in his place by putting a woman on Pete's account. But again, Don does a solid for Peggy here too, and gives her a pretty significant promotion. I had a broken hand, and the first time she shook my hand, she really shook my hand hard. I was like, ow.
A handshake from her boss across the desk in front of everyone. It's a big moment. I love that. Matt had a very specific vision for that shot across the desk, one of us on either side of the frame, and just that simple handshake. And I love it because it shows how far they've come from that first episode and her not knowing what to do and being so nervous to... And this is a direct throwback to the pilot. Matt's very specific about it. It's exactly the pilot, the relationship between us, me carrying the box, where we're walking, her teaching me the ropes once again was a throwback to the pilot, which was really fun.
Vic Manny, I'd like you to meet Peggy Olson. She'll be taking...
And Matt kept trying to make that box really heavy because he wanted me to feel like the weight of the box being really heavy, and I kept taking things out of it because I was like, I can act that, Matt, I am an actress.
Very funny.
This actor was one of the sons in My Three Sons, which was a show I used to watch when I was a kid.
And no music.
This was the big moment, the big reveal of the pregnancy, and it was really fun and difficult to play. I mean, how do you play somebody who doesn't know that they're pregnant, finding out that they're pregnant? It's like, it's a new one. But I loved doing it and exploring it and finding out how to go about it. Matt, who has 4 children, showed me very specifically how to bend over when I felt the pains, the sounds that I would make, describing the pain and what that would be like, because he's had experience with it. So he helped me out with how to do that.
My aunt is a nurse, and she sees it still all the time, where young girls find themselves in this predicament, and whether no one taught them about body changes or they just don't pay attention, the fact that they don't know until it's way, way, way too late that they are with child still happens. So it's not unbelievable that this happened to her. Matt had talked about, maybe that the weight gain was her way of being asexual so that she isn't perceived as a woman by the men in the office and therefore is working her way up the ladder. But then you find out she's pregnant, and I thought it was really, really interesting and not unbelievable. I didn't mind it at all.
It's funny, the whole pregnancy thing is one of those things that Matt and I sort of silently understood and didn't really talk about. We both knew exactly what was happening and what was going on with her. And we would talk about it to other people who didn't know, but just between the two of us, we knew exactly what was happening. I think that it's so far out of the realm of possibility that she could be pregnant that it does not even enter her head, that it's just, she completely blocks it out. I mean, I think everyone kind of knows what it's like to have complete and utter denial of something. I mean, you have the capability to just shut something out. And that's what she does with this idea of being pregnant. It just doesn't even enter her head. I've had many people ask me, how could that happen? How could you be pregnant? How could you not know? The time period, women didn't have the knowledge that they have now of their own bodies and what happens. They just didn't. Somebody like Peggy just wouldn't. If her mother didn't explain it to her, she might not. She doesn't have any friends, so not a chance that any of her girlfriends might clue her in. And believe it or not, that does happen. It happened just last year. It was in the paper.
Would you like to try to feed him?
And the idea of juxtaposing that with the previous scene of Pete's father-in-law making a veiled attempt to go try to make a baby, and in fact he has made a baby with Peggy. Rough stuff.
We went back and forth between whether or not it was going to be a boy or a girl. And Matt went with a boy because I think that's even more heartbreaking in a way. And she's sort of brought a young man into the world now. He's got a little extra depth to it than a woman. And that scene, for some reason, every time they brought this baby over to me, I lost it. I don't know why, I just would lose it. There was another take where you could see a tear go down my face, and Matt specifically chose the one where you didn't, which I think was a much stronger choice, and goes back all the way to the beginning with Lady's Room, where she won't cry. And it's just a stronger choice for her to just be absolutely shut down and feeling nothing. But I think that moment is just about a complete and utter denial, and she just can't hold him. And it's just as simple as that. There's not a whole lot of complexity in it. She just can't hold him. It's too much.
I really love that there are these 2 endings. Originally there was just going to be the one, and Don kind of gets what he wants in the end, and I think that it was a good choice to have it not be that way. I mean, he may very well drive to the country to see his family the next day, but he shouldn't just decide that he does love his family and appreciates them and gets it right away. I like that they're not home.
We learn a lot about Don and about Pete and about Peggy, And we learn about what family means and what it should mean, and it should be a source of comfort, and home becomes a big resonating theme. And as a season closer, I think this is a pretty great episode, and I think Matt did a wonderful job with it.
Winning the Golden Globe, I will never ever forget. It was an incredible experience. Because of the strike, we had our own sort of private gathering because they just had a televised press conference. It was actually great because not everybody would have gotten to go to the Golden Globes, so we all got to be there together. There were definitely people that got to be there that wouldn't have gotten to be there, which was great. And I have never heard screams like that in my life. All I remember is hearing Mad Men and nothing after that, because it was just screams. I swear to God, everyone jumped up and down and hugged each other for about 10 minutes straight. It was absolute madness, because it's like everybody's crying and it's like your family, and it's such an accomplishment. We had all worked so hard. Also, just the odds were so against us. I mean, the chances seemed so slim. It wasn't like being a show that has already won a lot of awards or has been on for a few seasons, or this is our first season. We only made 13 episodes, so to get recognized like that, especially amongst the shows that we were nominated, was just truly shocking. And it was funny, the reaction to the show winning was only a little bit bigger than Jon winning Best Actor, because he's such a big part of the show, and he also works harder than anyone else. If that was all that happened, I think we all would have been fine. So for what it feels like our little show to have won was just incredible.